I'm pretty sure there's a wishing well in like Rome, I want to say.
Georgia or
no,
the country, Italy. Rome, Georgia, or Rome, Italy. I mean,
I believe
Italy.
Italy.
Soundstripe.
Welcome in to another episode of Blockbusters, a classic movie podcast where if you're like us and you miss the days of packed movie theaters and movie stores, then this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Caleb Suggs. Joining me are my co-host, Dakota Lowry.
What's up, everybody?
And Ernie One-Eyed Ferguson.
Okay, Caleb. Michael Jackson didn't come over to my house to use the bathroom, but his sister did.
I believe Michael Jackson came to your house to use the bathroom.
Prince would be better off than Michael Jackson.
You were Michael Jackson. You had the sequin glove, didn't you, in the Thriller jacket? I know you did.
No, my size parachute pants didn't work very well, so no.
What's that got to do with the sequin glove and the Thriller jacket?
Because you have to have parachute pants to go with it.
You didn't wear parachute pants
with that jacket and with the glove.
In the Thriller video?
No,
I'm thinking of what's parachute pants?
They're like almost the same kind of material as the jacket is, but they have zippers all over the place.
I think I'm thinking of hammer pants.
No, not the same. Not the same at all. Again, you weren't alive during this time, so you don't know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about.
I do know. I know. I'm aware.
As you made it abundantly clear, I'm old. But no. There's parachute pants were. I don't think Michael Jackson ever wore parachute pants, but for some reason they were always attributed to him. And I don't know why, though.
I always forget that he wore the red pants in Thriller because I always get, because you had the Thriller video, but you also had the Beat It video where he wore a different but very similar red jacket, but he wore black pants in that one. And it also had Eddie Van Halen in it.
Yeah, Sheryl Crow what was she in? She was Dirty Diana. She was in Dirty Diana, and I think Slash may have played guitar in that one also. But I'd rather not go on the Michael Jackson tirade. I'd rather go on a Prince tirade than a Michael Jackson tirade. Because spicy take, Michael Jackson's overrated.
Some people say I like Prince better because he's a guitar player and I love guitar players and he's a great guitar player. But I would say overall, like the songs that I like of Prince's, I like them a whole lot, but there's more Michael Jackson songs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't know if I agree, but yeah, I understand. I'm not if you take the videos away from Michael Jackson. Prince,
especially Purple Rain, that's probably one of the top 5 favorite songs.
Oh, that whole entire album.
Well, the whole album is great, but this Purple Rain in particular is, especially live. If you haven't heard his live from Syracuse, I think it's like from that tour where it's like an 18-minute version and like 10 minutes of it is just him wailing on the guitar.
That's like the Hall of Fame. There's a Hall of Fame with George Harrison's induction to Hall of Fame, and
he does the
guitar solo in
My Guitar Gently Weeps.
Yes, so you have like Jeff Lynne of ELO, you have Tom Petty, you have all these different cats, and the person that you would not think is playing the guitar solo is Prince, and he absolutely rips it and then just chucks his guitar out of the way and he's done. And
he always tossed it into the heavens because after you play it like that, there's only one place for it to go.
And for those that want to watch a real halftime performance,
yes,
watch Prince's halftime performance when he's in 5-inch heels and it's a torrential downpour
he's
and
singing
sun is
Purple
just
Rain in the rain.
Yes, and I mean
it's hard to find like great versions of those older halftime shows sometimes.
Yeah,
I don't. Maybe not now, but for the longest time, you like couldn't find that Prince halftime show on YouTube or anything. You had to like find it on like other like random websites.
And
but
Prince
anyways, back to movies this week.
Well, Prince was But Prince was represented in this movie because there's a poster in Mikey's room and also on Mouth's shirt. Yeah.
This week we are doing the Goonies. This Ernie Ferguson pick for your daughter.
Yeah,
When's her birthday?
Yeah, her birthday is next week. Okay. This is the closest pick I have to her birthday. So this is
her birthday pre next episode or post next episode?
It is post.
Okay,
next episode.
Well,
June 6th is when her birthday is. So
we'll wait a week to wish her happy birthday, and then we're gonna completely forget next week.
Yeah.
But no, the Goonies. I mean, this is a classic, right?
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is kid adventure movie. Mm-hmm. Is there a better kid adventure movie?
Well, no. To answer your question, there is not. I think this is the best one. But as I was watching this, do they even make movies like this these days? Like teen movies, young adult movies? Because I don't want to say it's a kid's movie just because obviously there's some cussing and stuff in it. So I don't want to say it's just a kid's movie. But like teen, young adult movie. I mean, I feel like these type of movies were commonplace in the 80s and somewhat in the 90s. But these days, I mean, I really couldn't.
But can you see Stranger Things coming from this though?
Yes, absolutely.
That's so. And here's the issue too: is y'all. To me, this is very nostalgic because I can remember riding my bicycle all over God's creation and just go. My parents not having a clue where I was, just driving, just riding my bike. My friends and I, we'd go all over the place. We knew how to get back to our houses, at what time we had to leave and what time we had to get back to our houses before the street lights came on, And so that's why I don't think you can't do this as a modern interpretation because it doesn't. Because people would be worried about, I mean, yes, I know at the end of the movie, people were worried about the kids and all that kind of stuff because it didn't come home. But I mean, nowadays you have cell phones, you have Live 360, and you couldn't have this type of thing nowadays. It would have to be a period piece again because it just wouldn't work.
No, I think, me and Dakota aren't that young. I mean, I would say maybe not to the point to where I would just go all around town and my parents, just didn't know where I was and that was okay. But I mean, in your backyard, in the woods, this is literally a kid's fantasy, right? Mm-hmm. To go and just find random places, whether it be a cave or if maybe you went in the woods and found an old treehouse. I did that when I was young. Just something random, but you go on these adventures. That's what you do. And so, everything about this movie is something as a kid that you would dream. This is the dream.
Yeah. It is you with your friends on an unrealistic adventure, but it's still, you're going after, pirate treasure. And they really tried to make it outlandish with some parts that were cut, like the octopus scene. If you haven't seen that, I'm like, oh man, that would have ruined this movie completely. And then there's another scene like when I think when Sloth came, when he pushed up on the water pipes, and somehow it released like monkeys, and they stole a car like Jumanji-esque and started driving the car around town. That makes it even more unrealistic. But everybody has this us versus them, which if you look on the mailboxes at Brandon and Mikey's house, on the mailboxes they have painted us and then they have painted them on it. So you have this idea of the rich snooty people, and kind of going against them and then going out on adventures. And another reason why this can't be made nowadays, because there'd be too many feelings hurt with the way the kids talk to each other. Oh my goodness. Sloth, not Sloth, but Chunk just got railed on 24/7,
but everybody was fair game though.
Yeah, that's where
everybody was fair game. Yeah,
that's where. But nowadays you can't do that because you're lowering their self-esteem, or that's just wrong. You can't do that. And I'm like, man, that's what made childhood great. And now it's sometimes. I'm not. Yes, there's bullying. I'm not saying bullying doesn't exist, but that's just a group of friends that knew each other, and eventually somebody was going to turn on somebody else, and they're going to talk about each other's moms. They're going to talk about each other. They're going to just talk about, and then they're going to go have an adventure and have fun. And hey, we'll see you tomorrow. And there's not feelings hurt. You're not going to your parents and saying they made me do the truffle shuffle again. Because that's the one thing that I think that's incredibly awesome about this is that the actress Andy was the oldest. She was 18. Carrie Green was 18. I mean, Josh Brolin was 17. Sean Astin was 14. They're only 3 years apart. The genetics can tell there's a big difference between the two. But I mean, everybody was 14 except for Chunk, Chunk was 11, but everybody else was like 14. And so, I mean, that's what made it great is that you had these child actors who were allowed to act like preteens and teenagers. They wasn't scripted. You could tell it looked like they were just able to just kind of go at each other, and that's one of the beauties I think of the movie.
Ferg, you say that bullying like that isn't a thing now, and maybe it isn't in high schools. Go walk onto any blue collar job site right now, and I promise you're going to find that somebody's been a part of that for the last 5 years. But
how
it has
old are
not
they,
stopped.
But how old are they though? I'm talking about like in schools and stuff like that. Like, I mean,
yeah, not in schools. No,
you have to learn how to get thick skin. Again, I'm not going to say that bullying does not exist because there are some stuff, and there is. I'm not. That's not what I'm saying, but. I guess you see all the videos and the memes and stuff like that about Gen X versus the other generations. I mean, you're talking about latchkey kids that came home to an empty house. Nobody was there. You literally had the key to your house and go, and they didn't know where you were at. They were just going around. It really kind of it is a different time period. Not necessarily good, not necessarily better, but it was significantly different though.
Yeah, and I tell you one of the things that I really liked about this. Kamei has tried to get me to watch this movie for years, and I don't know why I never conceded into watching it.
Because we're men and we're stubborn and we don't always want to do what our wives.
Yeah, that might have just a little bit to do with it.
Point,
but I think I enjoyed just the carefreeness of this. Movie, just almost like you kind of had the absurdity of the Pirates of the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
Did I say it right for you, Suggs?
No, Caribbean.
I knew it. I knew
Caribbean,
I was going to get it.
Unless
say
it's
it however
Pirates
you
of
want
the
to
Caribbean.
say it.
Whatever.
You can
Anyway.
You can say it. But I mean, I would say because I've had people ask me before. I mean, I've literally had people ask me, and I always tell them it's Caribbean unless it's Pirates of the Caribbean. That's how I say it.
As long as you don't say swords towards the end, we'll be all right.
That's the worst.
Look, I had 3 different people text me about that and say they had to talk to me about the way that I say sword.
I mean, look, Dakota has a southern drawl, and he says things like he says coyote, which I learned was like the older people say it that way. I mean,
Yeah.
I get it. That's just, but sword, I can't. Every time he says it, it makes me cringe.
Well, going back to this movie, it kind of had that absurdity of it, where you have the kids getting out of these untimely situations, by just happenstance at some points, or by sometimes I think about the whole piano bone scene or whatever, where you have the people coming up on them and everything, but you have it, but you also have a little bit of Scooby-Doo, and just like a group of kids coming together, going up against something that they have no means of going up against. They shouldn't be the ones going down here doing this. It should be a group of adults, but they're going to go do it anyways because nobody believes them, because it's an absurd story that their dad came up with, but they're kids and they believe it. And I think that kind of carefreeness is what people love so much about this. And even I really think that this kind of falls a little bit into that, kind of cult classic type movie, because it brings people that nostalgia back, like you talked about, Ferg, where it's remembering of their childhood and, the stories and the things like that they would come up with and stuff like that, you know?
If the ending of the movie, and obviously you would have to change things a little bit, but if the ending of the movie had been either Sean Astin's character wakes up and he's been dreaming the whole time, or they did go out and like on an adventure, but like it wasn't really like they were just kind of like in a cave or something, but it was like everything that happened was like in their imagination, like because they I mean, could you buy that? I mean, because it just goes into that sense of an adventure.
I think I would have bought it a little bit more. I think to me, this would have gave this movie a lot more credibility, because it's like, okay, it's a bunch of kids that are going out and just playing in a cave and coming up with this absurd adventure, you know?
See, I guess it depends on how you go into the movie.
I think you would have now the dreaming part. I mean, the dreaming part you can make it work, but like the if it was just their imagination, but they actually went out and did stuff. I mean, you have to change things. I'm just saying, like that spirit of adventure. I think if that happened, I feel like you could. I mean, that's just part of it. You could buy into it.
Yeah. I think it kills some of the magic of the movie. Because again, this is again a Steven Spielberg movie. I mean, he wrote the movie. You have Chris Columbus doing the screenplay, Richard Donner directing. So you have an all-star trio right there doing this movie. But again, it's an adventure movie, which if you put adults in this situation, nobody questions this, but it's kids. But that's the innocence part of this, because all the adults in Aurora, or whatever the name of the city was, they've kind of, in the Goondocks, have basically given up, but here the kids are the ones that aren't giving up, that are kind of pushing through and leading the charge, and that's kind of that's what makes the heart of the movie, is that you have these kids and they have an opportunity at the wishing well to kind of split apart, because Mikey gives almost the exact same speech in the wishing well scene as he did before the four go into the restaurant, about, it's kind of our job. It's us. We need to do this type of thing, because he knows in the wishing well, they need all of them in there. And it's just, it's just kind of that to me, that is the heart and soul of the movie. And if you make it a dream sequence at the end, yes, it makes sense. It explains all the campiness, but then to me, you are taking the heart out of the movie.
Well, The Goonies is a 1985 American adventure comedy film directed and co-produced by Richard Donner from a screenplay by Chris Columbus, based on a story by Steven Spielberg. It stars Sean Astin, Josh Brolin, Jeff Cohen, Corey Feldman, Cary Green, Martha Plimpton, and Ke Huy Quan, with John Matuszek, Robert Davey, John Patolino, and Ann Ramsey in supporting roles. In the film, a group of children who live in the Goondocks neighborhood of Astoria, Oregon, attempt to save their homes from foreclosure, and in doing so, they discover an old treasure map that takes them on an adventure to unearth the long-lost fortune of One-Eyed Willie, a legendary 17th century pirate, while being pursued by a family of criminals who are after the treasure as well. The film was produced by Spielberg's Amblin Entertainment and released by Warner Brothers theatrically on June 7, 1985 in the United States. It grossed $125 million worldwide on a budget of $19 million. In 2017, the film was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant.
I agree with that. But again, Richard Donner, I don't think he gets credit enough for, being the director that he is, because you usually have people that have certain genres. But here he is. We've already done Superman. He did that. He did The Omen. He did The Goonies. He did Lethal Weapon. You're talking about 4 different types of movies right there that he did, and that's impressive. And again, if there's 2 guys that can work with kids also, that's Spielberg and Christopher Columbus. That they do a good job of working with kids. I really love the story about how Richard Donner was he was going crazy with the kids. He wasn't a big fan of kids, period. And so after the movie wrapped, he went on vacation to Hawaii, and Steven Spielberg took all the kids to Hawaii, to where Richard Donner was staying, and basically brought them in there and brought them to Donner's house. So Donner he and Spielberg had dealt with the kids. So the kids just kind of went nuts in this Hawaii house with him, so he couldn't escape them. and that's that's pretty cool.
Crickets.
Yeah, look, sorry, I'd be honest, I was zoned out for a couple minutes because my dog lost his mind because somebody rung our doorbell. So
I was just trying to give you time to talk because normally it's me and Ernie that are dominating. I mean, for the first 9 minutes, I don't think Dakota spoke for the first 9 minutes of the podcast.
I was letting y'all get y'all stuff out.
You're letting us, okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm just here to make sure it doesn't derail and get too far about Prince and Michael Jackson, okay?
It's a great discussion to have. Look, it's part of the movie. Prince is in the movie. I mean, we don't have a music podcast, so we have to put these discussions somewhere in the podcast that we have. I mean, if we made a podcast for every single discussion that me and Ernie want to have, we'd have like 16 different podcasts.
And look, I will sit here and make off comments about all of them.
What I think is impressive also about this movie, though, is that you have the major or the motion picture debut of Sean Astin, Josh Brolin, and Kerry Green. All three of those have also, that's their first major motion picture that they made also. So again, you're talking about rookie actors, even though Josh Brolin he's a Nepo baby, so it's not like he hadn't seen this before.
Yeah, my thing I came from this is the Avengers really should have asked the Goonies for help because they took Thanos down like it was that. They had him trapped. If the Goonies had been in charge of Thanos, the snap would have never happened.
I don't know. I mean, Thanos didn't have the whatever that thing was, that stretcher thing. So he didn't have that around him to be able to.
Do people still use those to exercise anymore?
I don't even remember people using them when I was growing up, so I don't know.
I've only ever seen them in movies. I've never actually seen one, like a person using one. And that's why I didn't know, because obviously I'm not as old as you are, Ernie, so I don't know what people.
Very true.
I didn't know how people exercised back in those days.
I don't remember seeing that.
Did you ever wear the short shorts underneath your sweatpants?
No, I lived in Texas. I mean, why would you wear sweatpants and then short shorts over there? Now, again, it was.
I mean, they're living in Oregon, so I don't.
It gets cold and wet up there, so
I'm sure it gets cold in Texas in the winter, right?
Yeah, for a day.
No.
You're telling me Texas you don't get the slight bit cold in Texas at all?
Between like December 31st and January 1st. That's, I mean, where I grew up. Again, I grew up like southeast of Houston, so not the Panhandle where it'll get like 30 below, but then also 110 degrees. No, I was on the coast, and it was summer 9 months of the year, and then fall 1 month, spring 2 months, and maybe a couple days of winter, maybe.
Do you ever wear a red bandana to keep your flowing hair that you had back in the day?
I may have wore a red bandana, but I never had flowing hair, so my hair was always short on the sides and the back. But now it's just short on the top, so or missing.
Well, facing foreclosure of their homes in the Goondocks area of Astoria, Oregon, to an expanding country club, a group of boys who call themselves the Goonies, Mikey Walsh, Richard Data Wang, Clark Mouth Devereaux, and Lawrence Chunk Cohen gather for a final weekend together. Rummaging through Mikey's attic, they come across a 1632 doubloon and an old treasure map leading to the treasure of legendary pirate One-Eyed Willie, believed to be located somewhere.
Somewhere.
It says believed to be located somewhere.
It's out there. I'm not sure where exactly, but it's out there. Which, one of the issues, again, that we have with Wikipedia is that it leaves the Fratellis out of the very beginning of the movie. That's what the one thing I like about this movie is that you have your entire cast of characters introduced to you in some form or fashion at the very beginning. You have the Fratellis breaking out of the jail. You have Steph diving for crabs. You have Mouth helping his dad with the plumbing. This is going to be a good movie. And this shouldn't be a barometer of a good movie, but when you have an 11-year-old kid slap a pizza up against the window and then the shake pops up and then he cusses and you're like, oh, okay. yeah, here we go. This is not going to. We're not taking this too seriously, So it's going to be good. So I like the way they introduced and they gave them all the personalities. You saw the personalities. To me, one of the things that this movie is it's a family movie. Yes, it has the cussing in it, and it has enough peril. Like when you don't see Sloth the first time, when you see just his silhouette, you're like, oh man. And then some of the different skeletons, are just kind of like, it has enough of that. I don't want to use horror as the word, but yeah, this is, to me, we started talking about, I thought you were telling me to stop because I said it was a horror, it had some horror aspects to it, but this is like your lowest grade horror type of flick. There is some peril in it. You have the different types of skeletons, which were like really good skeleton looking things. And so it had the elements of kids, it had the adventure, had a little bit of horror, it had humor in it. So this is one of those reasons why I think Goonies is a movie, even if it looks outdated at times, it's a movie that you can watch any time of the year. You can watch it any decade, and you can watch it almost with any group of people too. And so that's why I think it's kind of a classic movie, because it can be stretched, to generational. I mean, my daughter loves the movie. I love the movie, and so I think that's one of those things. It's just the way it's set up.
See, I think, I know you talked a little bit about this earlier. I think that kind of is going to end with our generation, because, you don't, like I said, these kids nowadays aren't going to have that, going out, running around in the streets and everything until 8 and 9 o'clock at night, And so I think there's going to come a certain point in a younger generation where this movie's not going to make sense to them, and they're going to look back at it and be like, well, I don't really get it. But especially in this opening scene here, especially with the kids and all at the house, I really liked how they set up the group dynamic here, and to me, it really kind of established them as just a group of kids.
Mm-hmm.
Even like, and there were so many things that I loved, and things that I could remember back of it, and when we were kids, like them opening up the gate. And them going through this whole trap and things like this, and whatever this whole contraption that they have set up just to open the gate. And I made the comment afterwards. I was sitting here thinking, like, that was really cool once. Now you're going to spend 30 minutes setting it back up just to open the gate. But as a kid, like, that made, you wouldn't have thought anything else about that. Like, it'd be like, hey, let's look at this really cool thing. And even like, as they got into the house and they broke the statue and they were trying to figure out how to get it glued back together in the right way, and look at like after everything, and then with was it mouth that was translating for the for the housekeeper, and I mean it's just like little things like that, like stupid things like that really kind of, I think, established the kids is like, hey, these really are kids, and that they're not, like young adults or teenagers or whatever. And then you have Brand, who, what you could tell is like at heart, he's still a kid and still wants to do these adventures and hang out with his little brother, but he wants to be grown and he wants to do the workout thing and chase the girl and get the girl, and try to get his driver's license, but.
Speaking of, just a quick sidebar, we definitely all have our favorite Goonie, right?
Yeah.
Which would be that was not of me asking who is your favorite Goonie. I'm sorry, did I need to put it in question form?
Yeah. Mine's Data.
Oh, I love Chunk.
See, I like Mouth. I like that we all have different.
No, my mouth is absolutely Chunk.
Is anybody's favorite ever Mikey?
No, it's not, because Mikey's not there. Mikey's there to push the story.
Yeah,
Mikey is the heart. He's not the hero, because Chunk is the hero. But Mikey is there to keep pushing everybody, to keep it going.
Limp Lung.
So I mean, Limp Lung. That's see again. That's some funny stuff that they had there. When they just the whole entire dynamic. And I like the little things that they picked up on. Like I started counting whenever they said, "That's what I said," because it was Mikey. I think Chunk said it once because his mouth was full, but it was Mikey's mom, and Data were the only ones to say that, which shows you Data must have picked it up by living next door. And so it was just kind of, I like movies that have running jokes that go throughout the movie, and I like that that they had that even at the very end. Whenever the mom says you're going to get ammonia, and they said you mean pneumonia? And she, that's what I said. So I like little things like that, and then just like little drops here or there, like whenever they find the map and they hold it up and you see all four of the boys' faces, but you're not paying attention to the back of the map that has the musical notes on the back of it. It means nothing to you at that point in time. But then later on, when they're playing the keyboard of Bones or whatever, you're like, oh man, yeah, I saw that. That was so. Again, I really liked all the little things that they dropped in there like that.
Yeah, that's one of those things that you have to go. That's coming from somebody who's seen this movie multiple times. Me seeing this movie for the first time did not pick up on that, and did not see that. And it won't be until I watch it again that I see that.
Another thing that the mom said that I thought was really funny, she said, "I'd really like the house to be clean when they tear down the house." I was like, that sounds very. I know some people in my family that we're going to bring a bulldozer to the house. Well, I want it to be clean before they bulldoze the house down, and it's like that. Yeah, I can see that.
That's like every married woman ever.
Yeah.
If we're being completely honest,
I will let you say that.
I don't have no problem with it. Well, seeing the treasure as their last chance to save their homes, the boys overpower and bind Mikey's older brother, Brandon Brand Walsh, to get past him and make their way to an abandoned restaurant on the coast that coincides with the map. Brand soon follows alongside Andy Carmichael, a cheerleader with a crush on him, and her tomboy best friend, Stephanie Steph Steinbrenner. So you mentioned a deleted scene earlier. You talked about the deleted scene with the octopus, because they had to put deleted scenes into when they showed it on Disney Channel for the first time, because obviously they had to cut some stuff out. But another deleted scene they had was them in the convenience store.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not mistaken, there is like Mikey finds like on a brochure or something. He finds it to where he sees that the holes on the map coincide with the cliffs on the coast. And that's how he knows to go there, whereas in this theatrical version of the movie, they just kind of automatically go there. So I'm not sure why they cut that scene out.
Well, I can also understand it too. A 1985 movie, and this movie was pushing 2 hours, so it's one of those things where, there's certain little things like they need to cut out for time wise, or also I think you also slow down because in that same scene, Brand saves him from Troy. And now they have to get away. Now they have to figure out how to get away from Brand again. So now they have to get away from him twice. So I can see why they deleted that scene. Which my big problem with kind of the movie was, okay, so Andy was riding in the car with Troy, had Troy's like sweater Letterman's jacket or whatever on, but yet was going to have a date with Brand. I was like, what? I'm sorry, that doesn't make.
I find that perfectly believable for a high school girl.
I mean,
not all high school girls, but some. I find that perfectly believable.
So, but again, the whole entire
the most unbelievable part was him holding his hand on the car like he couldn't just easily pull that away. Yeah, that's the most unbelievable part. Not to pull out my inner Dakota there, but I mean, come on now. Especially
you're gonna tell me a dude got launched 45 miles an hour off the side of a cliff on a bicycle with no helmet and survived?
No, come on. But two cool parts to that is one, watching the training wheels start to spark, and then they fly off. And then you have this, okay, it's not quite E.T., but it's an E.T. moment. E.T., when E.T. and Elliot went up, they kept on going because he had E.T. Elliot had E.T. Brand didn't, so Brand kept on falling. So again, yes, it's not realistic, but again, this is a kid's adventure movie, so I don't have a problem necessarily with that.
I just
thought it was funny that
I
his
didn't even
dad
have
was
I didn't even have a problem with the him flying off the cliff because, like you said, it's a kids adventure movie, so it's just funny. My only problem was I was like, could they at least make it more believable how he's tied up to this car instead of his hand is just on top of it? Like, come on now.
Well, now if Brand was using one of those hamstring little machines, cranks or whatever, instead of that stretchy thing, he would have easily gotten off.
I feel like he has at least enough muscles to pull his hand out from underneath that. Because that Troy kid doesn't look that strong. I mean, for him to be the high school jock, he's actually he looks smaller than Brand.
Could just be the kicker,
But at this time also, one of my favorite lines whenever the kids are riding their bikes down the road or whatever, and I think it was Mikey that calls Data 00 negative. That's one of those. That's one of those things that my brother and I will. This movie is one of those movies like Ferris Bueller Day Off that has just different stuff that my brother and I will just throw out at each other all the time, and that's one of those things is we'll occasionally call each other 00 negative. That to me is one of those humorous parts also.
And let me tell you something else I noticed about these kids. The entire movie, they're so loud. The entire
that is a negative about the movie. There's a lot of kids screaming in this movie.
There is.
Don't get me wrong, very realistic. I mean, if you've ever, I don't know if you ever see a bunch of teenagers in a restaurant, yeah, they're absolutely screaming. But I mean, and come on, when there's a crime family above them, on the floor above them, let's be realistic here.
Well, the group soon discovers that the derelict restaurant is a hideout of the Fratelli crime family, Francis, Jake, and their mother. The Goonies find a tunnel in the basement and follow it, but Chunk leaves to alert the police after being mistakenly locked in a freezer. Chunk flags down a nearby car to go to the sheriff's station. It turns out to be the Fratellis who kidnap and imprison him. The Fratellis interrogate Chunk until he reveals where the Goonies have gone and begin pursuit. Chunk is left behind alongside their hulking and deformed younger brother Sloth, whom he befriends. After Sloth frees them both, Chunk calls the sheriff, who thinks it is another one of his tall tales. Chunk and Sloth follow the tale of the Fratellis.
This is where it picks up for me. This is the part where it really.
Chunk
I wish I could have.
When he flags down the car, and it's not like, I mean, he goes through the whole story, and he's like, I can ID them, I know what they look like, I know where they are. And he tells them everything, and then they flip the light on, and then they get him back. And first of all, he's a kid, so it's realistic. But he was very quickly ready to give up his friends. They showed him that blender. They put the tomato in it. He said, "All right, I'll tell you." And they said, "Tell us everything." And him literally
everything. Oh my! That was one of the funniest things in the whole movie, where you'd have him sitting there confessing, and then they cut to another scene, and then it cut back to him still confessing, and then they go to another scene and cut back. Oh, I was rolling the entire time.
But is that not such a realistic scene?
Yes,
for
it
kid?
is.
Like, you could tell them, because my parents would do this all the time. They'd be like, so your teacher called me today, trying to get me to confess on myself. I think I did do it one time. I'm going to go ahead and admit that, because I'm sure my parents will be like, you did do it. But they would still try to do it over and over again. But I mean, you could get kids to do that. You would tell them that, and then they would just start confessing.
And just the different stuff that he confessed. And again, watching the two brothers don't get enough credit, I think, in this movie, because again, when they first captured Chunk, you have the one brother, I can't remember which one's Francis and which one, I can't remember what the other one's name is, but Davey, he's just in there singing opera, smoking a cigarette, while Joe Pantoliano's, he's struggling to try to get Chunk in the back, and he's like hating it. And then they get to the blender scene, and by the end of it, Davi is sitting there, he's got his arms around, I like this kid, and the Donald Trump mom is like, you're going to confess. He starts grabbing his fingers and put them in the blender. And it just was, the bad guys did a great job of being bad, sometimes bumbling, except for the mom. The mom was like, when she kicked him out the first time, she shuts the door and she just goes, kids suck, which explains how she treats her sons also too, you know.
I think they get a little too bumbling at the end, but here in the middle, I think they're the perfect blend of. I mean, because it's still a kids movie, so you don't want them to be completely serious. But at the same time, I mean, obviously they find dead bodies, so you see what they're capable of. You saw it early in the police chase at the beginning, where the mom times it up with the rally off road vehicle race. That's how they get away. So you know they have some smarts to them. So I mean, for a kids movie, they're pretty good bad guys.
Yes.
Yeah,
then
I mean,
also-
you have the typical group of bad guys too, where you have the one smart leader and then the two, just bright, bronze or whatever you want to call them.
They're idiots. I don't know how many times she's called them idiots
Yeah.
while they're doing this. But there's also, but their bumbling has a lot to do with Data and what he's done to them. And so that's one of those things where Joe Pantoliano, which I have to remember what character he is. I think he may be Francis. He got hit in the crotch. I don't know how many times. He did. I mean, with the gun, with with the pinchers of whatever that's called, and just and so that to me again allowed Data to shine with all his 00 negatives things that he has.
But then we also get the introduction of Sloth, which is kind of one of those things. This is one of those movies where you have, I mean, again, it's like you said, it's a family movie, so you have something for the kids, but you also have stuff for the parents. And I think this is where one of those things where, as a kid, you see Sloth, he's like this monster, right? Like, of course, they have him chained up because he's like this monster type thing. But as an adult, you kind of see like the dark side of because his family has got him chained up just because he's deformed or whatever. And also you get later on, I don't know if the whole dropping him on his head is supposed to imply that that's why he's deformed or that they tried to kill him because he was deformed. Either way, it's a very dark side.
Yes,
I mean,
it is.
So my point is though, I feel like this is part of the story, and this is a character that you see a lot differently as an adult versus as you would see as a kid.
So what you get is, Chunk is kind of the reject of the Goonies, and Sloth is the reject of the Fratellis, and they're the two that save the day. So again, that's a good
love Chunk.
Sloth love Chunk, baby. That's another thing though. Both of those
he was
segments
played
are
by a
something.
former football player, by the way. Like,
yeah, John Matuszak. He was with the Steroid Raiders back in the days. Yeah. Oh, that whole entire team was on roids. I mean, you can look that up. Lyle Alzado, all that group. But
were they in
kind
the
of
same
ironic.
division or because you were that would have been the Oilers. The Oilers would have when did the Oilers move out of Houston?
Oh, way after this. It was mid 90s, late 90s, something like that.
I'm just trying to figure like, is this like I hate the Raiders because they were like division rivals?
No, you look it up. Look it up. No, Lyle Alzado had issues because of steroids. No, it's a well-known fact with the Raiders. No, I liked like Howie Long and all that kind of crew. But no, this is also the Raiders during this time were like Matuszak played, I think, in the late 70s Raiders. So this before I even was paying attention to professional football. But it was also ironic that he had a Raiders shirt on too when he was chained up. So, and then again, you also have the little throw-ins with the movie that he was watching with the pirate coming down the sail. Also, the very first thing that Chunk says to his friends in the Goondocks, he says, "Hey, you guys, let me in." And again, Sloth, when we get later on, he goes, "Hey, you guys," he does that too. So again, just a tying in together of this whole entire thing.
Yeah, I think we also kind of missed over them getting back into the house also. And then that's when they finally start exploring and going downstairs and looking at everything. And then, like you mentioned, they find them in the freezer or whatever, but, just to be fair, these kids kind of handled finding a dead body very well. But the fact that they immediately just started joking about it was like, oh, look, it's a stiff. It's a stiff, and then like just kind of moving on and breezing past that.
I feel like this is just a thing of teen movies of this time period. I could be wrong, but I feel like I watched a lot of these older movies from like when my dad was younger, when I was younger. And I can just remember, I mean, obviously kids are kids, so they're not, it's not like they're going to react to bad things incredibly well. But I mean, I feel like I watched a lot of movies where kids reacted to murderers or killers or robbers or anything like fairly well for kids.
Well, I mean, look at the Home Alone movies, look at, I mean, like stuff like that, about how kids react to it. So.
Well, the Goonies evade several deadly booby traps along the tunnels and obtain candles from the skeletal remains of a previous treasure hunter, while barely staying ahead of the Fratellis. They finally reach the grotto where Willie's pirate ship, the Inferno, is anchored. The group finds the ship filled with treasure and they start filling their pockets, but Mikey warns them not to take any on a set of scales in front of Willie's skeleton, considering that to be their tribute to him. As the Goonies are plotting their escape, the Fratellis appear and strip them of their haul. The Fratellis start to bind the Goonies' hands and make them walk the plank until Chunk and Sloth arrive and distract the Fratellis long enough for the Goonies to jump overboard and swim to safety. Bran saves Andy from drowning and they kiss. The Fratellis proceed to grab all the treasures they can, including those on Willie's scale, which triggers one last booby trap, forcing them to drop the treasure. The Goonies attempt to use a last candle, only to find it's a stick of dynamite, causing the grotto to cave in. With Sloth's help, the Goonies and Fratellis barely escape. All right, so a lot to get through there. Basically, their entire time down in the tunnels. They go down into it. We get the whole thing where there's the pipes underneath, which I mean doesn't make a lot of sense. It's like, okay, if you were there to build pipes underneath, wouldn't you have been able to see like this tunnel? Or maybe not. I don't know.
Who knows?
Who knows?
I mean that they hadn't gotten to any part of the booby traps yet when they got to that.
Have they not?
No, because it was when the pipe busted and it started blowing the dirt and the mud off the wall, and then that's when Steph says God put that rock there for a reason, and then Bran moves it, and that's when the bats come through.
That's true.
They hadn't found any of that yet. The bigger question would be going to the wishing well. How have they found stuff like that? But again, disbelief, whatever.
A wishing well, they're just gonna. A well. Period. They're just gonna drill.
I don't know if I've. Obviously, this is an important scene because this is where we get Mike's whole speech, and they decide to actually keep going. But I don't know if I've ever actually seen like an actual wishing well like that. Like, I mean, I've seen like the stuff in the malls where you can clearly see the coins that you throw in, but like an actual well like that, I don't know.
Maybe where we live in the South. I don't know if
to be fair though, I don't feel like you're going to throw a bunch of coins down a well that is a communal well for water.
I don't think.
I mean, they had water pipes, so they had the distribution system.
Yeah, so I think it's just a thing that may not be a Southern thing to have wishing wells.
I don't think it's a U.S. thing to have wells. It's more of like a.
We had ponds at the mall. Is what we had. That's where you just throw it in there. Because
throw it in the
malls pay for it.
You would be surprised how much money the people, because obviously they have to clean those because obviously the coins would accumulate. But you would be surprised at how much they get from that.
Oh, don't doubt it. Because all kids are. Yeah. That's another way to keep your kids quiet. Here, throw that in there. Be quiet.
I'm pretty sure there's a wishing well in like Rome, I want to say.
Georgia or
no, the
country, Italy. Rome, Georgia, or Rome, Italy. I mean,
I believe
Italy.
Italy.
Yeah, when somebody says just Rome, they normally mean Italy.
To be fair, my wife's family has. My wife has family They have family in Georgia, so they say, "Hey, they're from Rome." So
it's
a common phrase in the Lowry household. Leave me
have
alone.
a wishing
here.
well in Rome, Georgia.
I don't know about the wishing well, okay, but just saying they're in Rome. You know,
there's a famous wishing well somewhere in Europe. I think it's Rome. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the one in Georgia is just like a spittoon that they may throw their dip cans in.
But anyways, the one in Europe, they clean out like $4,000 a day in it.
A day?
Like that.
That's what we need to get. We need to make a wishing well somewhere around here. Just people
collect all the pennies. They're not making the
Blockbusters podcast wishing well.
There you go. Because we're making so much money off of this. I mean, we need to branch out, and
that'll be the fun.
Could help. The pennies, even if they got Martin Sheen on them, they could help.
That's John F. Kennedy, you idiot. He played Kennedy. Oh, so the booby traps. The first one, where the big boulders or rocks came from the ceiling, that gave, again, Steven Spielberg, that gave Raiders of the Lost Ark vibes. I liked that about it.
This is definitely just Kid Indiana Jones, I would think.
Yes.
Right?
And
yeah.
So I liked this whole entire series setup. I like this because you have the stuff with Chunk intertwined with this, where he's spilling his guts. By the way, I've never heard of grape ice cream before, but he smelled. That was one of the flavors that he found in the freezer. I was like, grape ice cream? Never heard of it. Don't want it. So that sounds nasty to me. But you have the wishing well scene, which again to me is the heart of the movie, because not only do you get Mikey's speech, but then you also get Mouth, him saying, "See, this is my dream," and it didn't come true, so I'm taking all of it. So you have the interaction between him and Steph. So again, I thought that was really kind of to me a very poignant type of a part of it. But one of my favorite scenes is after they go to the bathroom and the Fratellis are catching up with them, and they go into that one tunnel, and you see the light just light up, and it's the skull face, and I was like, that's a cool shot, the cool looking shot.
Yeah, that's also the scene where, even though they're in this cave and they're facing certain death at some point with these booby traps, very near death, Andy decides that this is the perfect time to get, I guess, our first kiss. I don't know, or at least our first kiss with Bran. Although it's not, and then even though Steph sees that it's not Bran, but she doesn't tell her.
It must be slippery around here, because his feet kept on slipping out from under him. That was funny to me. Also,
he was standing in a hole.
Does Brad have braces?
Standing hole. That's what it was. I like also prior to this. Again, this scene has good scene. This is the little boys' room. This is the little girls' room. Where are you going, Brandon? I'm going to the men's room. Dana walks by. Yeah, we're going to the men's room. That again, kids being kids. It's funny. Is
it not the most dude thing ever though? Bran is absolutely tripping over Andy the entire time, but when she calls out for him, he's busy. So he's like, "Go see what she's hounding about."
Maybe she'll shut up. Yeah, that's 100%. That's guys being guys and being stupid. When it comes to women, guys are stupid, 100% stupid, and so that's like whatever. I can't remember. Well, it may have been in the wishing well scene too, or whatever, where Bran he leans his head, but it's on Steph, and he's like, "Oh," and then he leans it the other way. It's on Andy, where he was intentionally supposed to do it. I was like, "God, you're an idiot." That's about as smooth as I am. And I am not smooth at all either.
Well, I told you how smooth I am. Mouth's attempt at flirting at the end when he's what is it he said? I can't even remember what it was. Your looks are kind of pretty when your face doesn't screw it up. That sounds like Caleb flirting 101 playbook right there.
Yeah.
Which and then we get to the keyboard scene.
Yeah.
The way it was set up. Now, again, I understand whatever that they probably could not got the drawbridge down sooner, but just when you are introduced to it and they walk into it and you just see the skeleton up with these bone keys and you're just like, oh man. And then again, they reveal it on the back of the map was the
music, the
music. I always thought it was weird that mouth knows Spanish, but yet when he reads Spanish, he goes into his pirate voice instead of like a Spanish accent reading it. But that's one of those things that I really like. Was this whole entire sequence, even the sequence leading to that, when Slick Shoes come out and the brothers slip and they get racked twice, and then they come up and then Data hits them with the glove. That's it. That's the fun type of family adventure that you get from the movie.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I like about the whole skeleton thing was when all the floors had fallen, the Fratellis were just able to easily walk along the side to the drawbridge. I would have liked for there to be like it made the floor falling stuff seem less dramatic at that point.
Yeah, well,
it's a minor nitpick.
I guess, but if you're sitting there playing the piano, though, you have to play the piano all the way through to get the drawbridge to come down.
Yeah,
you can't stand against the wall and play the piano.
And that's one of one of these theories that they have about the movie, about how the kids were worthy of the gold, but the Fratellis weren't, because the Fratellis were just following in their foot tracks. Where the Fratellis, when they got to the ship, and we'll get to this too, that when she takes the money away from One-Eyed Willie, if they would have just stayed on the ship, then they get away and they get the gold, but they weren't worthy, so they jumped off. And so that's kind of where you get that they were taking all these cheat steps. They didn't actually go through this, and that's kind of what that was kind of their curse from One-Eyed Willie.
Speaking of it, it said it earlier that they were also trying to find this treasure. That wasn't.
No, I think
true. Like they weren't in the restaurant. They were just in the restaurant because they were in a hideout, right?
Yes, it wasn't until Chuck came around.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I think the Wikipedia page had it wrong there.
Because he talked about Chester Copperpot and all that kind of stuff, and then when they found the little coin that said the 1600 date on it, that's when they were like,
he's telling the truth. Yeah.
Did anybody think because that's when he pulls out his wallet and he finds that Lou Gehrig card? Did anybody think, because at the end of the movie they obviously don't get all the treasure, but he still has the gems that he stowed away? Did anybody think at that point they were like not going to get the money, but that card he kept was going to be like the rich thing that kept their houses from being? I mean,
I could see that, but I never thought about it.
I was wondering why they didn't keep whenever they were in there. I was wondering why he didn't keep it. I was like, dude, especially in the 80s, baseball cards were like king. I'm like,
I don't know what the price would have been for a Lou Gehrig card. I mean, I don't know if it would have been something like, they would probably have to hyperbole it to make it be able to save a whole portion of a town.
I don't think it was in pristine shape. So
I still would think it would probably be worth some kind of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is the point to when we finally reach the pirate ship, which is very well preserved for it to not been taken care of for the last 200 years.
Well, it didn't. The sun didn't hit it at all. But
it was sitting in water. And wood and water rots.
It's a boat. It's supposed
wood
to stay
and
warm.
Water rots.
Not if you have Spanish cedar. Spanish cedar, it works with water. I watch a lot of DIY shows, and they use Spanish cedar in the South. So
look, cedar. I will say cedar does very good about not rotting. It is true. Okay. However, it's
Ben from hometown says Spanish cedar works, and I believe him.
Yeah, it might not rot in our lifetime, but how many lifetimes has this boat been sitting here? Okay,
at least 200 years, right? No, 300 years.
No, 1600. So
300 years.
Yeah, you used 1632.
Well, obviously, guys, we found out last week when I added 7.25 3 times and averaged it out. My math skills are not great.
We're mathing it. But that again, so that's a practical boat. So they literally built that boat from scratch, and
they didn't let the kids see it until they filmed it.
Yeah, and the problem with that, Josh Brolin saw it and he cussed a lot, and they had to cut it so they couldn't use Josh Brolin's because he was like, "Holy," like that, And the problem is they tried to sell it, but nobody would take it. And I think parts of it went to the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disney World or Disneyland, one of the two. Which also that ties into the water slide. You can't tell me if you watch this movie as a kid, even as an adult, when I see the water slide scene, I'm like going,
Oh, yeah.
heck yeah, let's go. Even fat, old, chubby myself, I'm saying I can get my big bowling butt down there. And I said, let's go, let's rock, let's take this water slide. And I'm thinking, man, those kids had to have a blast doing that.
Oh, yeah.
So we get the Fratellis that find them, and they gonna make them walk the plank, which is, I mean, with Andy it makes sense because she's tied up, but the rest of them, I'm like, okay, they have to get in the water to leave, anyways. Right?
Yeah, walking the plank only works when you're in the middle of the ocean and you got nowhere to go.
Now, Andy, it made sense. She's tied up. Okay, so
her feet aren't tied up. I mean, you can't tell me you can't.
Yeah,
use
but
your
you
arms.
can't sit there. You can't sit there and tread water like that for.
You just kick.
You're not. No.
She sunk. She didn't even try. She gave up. I'm like, all right, you're gone, girl. You ain't even trying to get over those rocks.
She needed her hero to come rescue him, which she did. Oh. And then we get that great kiss in the middle of all this. And we get the great line.
Oh, dude, they were so worried about that kiss.
What happened to your braces? But obviously, this is the best part of the movie, though, is when Chuck and Sloth show up. Because Sloth being the hero is just, Ferg already mentioned it with the "Hey you guys" quote, but when he rips off that shirt and we get the Superman shirt and the theme, which is, would you say it's better than the Superman movie we watched just a few weeks ago?
Well, the movie is, I don't know about necessarily the reveal, the Superman reveal, but again, Richard Donner, here he is, Richard Donner movie, he's got Superman into the Goonies, so,
This is it's probably like Ferg trying to bring Nino Brown into the podcast.
Hey, Nino Brown, he would have got One-Eyed Willie already taken out, and he would have taken his loot and gone. He would have gone back to New Jack City with with Inferno already, baby. But but again, also the funny part too, when Mama Fratelli was getting all the jewelry out of Mouth's mouth. Oh my goodness. And she kept on pulling the pearl necklace out and the rubies. Oh, you're the one that called Mouth, aren't you? And that's when I really noticed that she looked like Donald Trump was on the boat scene.
She sure does. Sure does. Golly, at her eyes, how much she did. But you kind of get that a little bit of an emotional scene from Mikey where he walks up and where he calls him the original Goonie, where I'll be honest, I didn't quite get why he was I think so emotional about that.
And one of the original things is like, I think One-Eyed Willie was supposed to have like his own inhaler also. Like that was in the kind of the story, the written in the story part. So I guess that's kind of the thing that kind of tied them together. That's the only thing I remember reading that, and I was like, okay, well, I guess that's why he calls him the Goonie. But I didn't understand that either. But again, you do get the emotional part of it for Mikey, which again, finally, Mikey's not complaining about Goonie rules and come on, guys. He actually gets an emotional part to this. Yeah. That's not whining.
It's still not. I mean, like when he's like, "How long y'all been standing there?" and we're like, "Long enough, Mikey." Like,
get out of the way.
Okay, what did you really hear?
Yeah,
he called him the original Goonie. Like, okay,
and nobody would call it treasure. It's always that rich stuff.
Rich stuff.
Yeah,
I'm like, no, it's you're talking about pirates. It's treasure. Call it treasure, please. Not.
But I think you also get this part here where you're like, you kind of get hey, we're not getting the good ending. You're not going to have the kids getting the gold, and which I'm gonna be honest with you, like if kids bring out this gold from 1632, I don't really think that this family's just going to be able to sell it. Like, why are you waiting until your house is getting foreclosed on to sell the ancient gold to save everything? So I feel like it would have been confiscated anyways. But you also get the kind of the scene where it's like, oh well, the kids aren't going to be able to save the day. You're kind of bringing that back around where, they're not going to be able to do it, and they get it. And even that's what Mikey keeps bringing up. Well, what about the treasure? What about the rich stuff? What about the rich stuff? What about the gold? Even until they get onto the beach.
One of the funny parts of when the Fratellis came down there in the treasure room or whatever is when they were running all the kids out, and Steph and Andy are walking out and they look at each other with the jewels on. They go, "Oh, like, oh my gosh, we're gonna die, we're gonna die, we're gonna die. Oh, that looks so good." I was like, that's so teenage girlish right there. It's funny.
Yeah.
Well, the groups emerge on Astorius Beach where the Goonies reunite with their families and the Fratellis are arrested by the police. The Goonies prevent Sloth's arrest and Chuck invites Sloth to live with him, which he accepts. Just as Brand and Mikey's father are about to sign the foreclosure papers, the Walsh's housekeeper, Rosalita, discovers that Mikey's marble bag is filled with some of the ship's jewels that he had not been seized by the Fratellis. Mr. Walsh triumphantly rips up the papers, declaring that they have enough money to negate the foreclosure. As the Goonies are recounting their adventure to the dumbfounded police and press, everyone's attention is drawn to the Inferno, having broken free of the grotto, sailing off majestically on its own into the distance. There's so much I want to comment on. First, I did think it was kind of, I don't know if I want to say cool, but I feel like maybe in modern movies it would show the parents being frantic, like trying to find the kids. So I like the fact that we get because it's been like a full day at this point.
A full night, yeah.
So I like that we now we're like, oh yeah, I guess the parents would be kind of upset and wondering where they are. But the best part to me is still Chunk is like, Sloth, you're gonna live with me now. We're talking about a grown, deformed man. No, that's not. I'm not saying that's why you shouldn't adopt him because he's deformed. That's not what I'm saying. No. But at the same time, he is a grown, deformed man.
Your grocery bill with Chunk is already one thing. But you have a grocery bill with Chunk and with Sloth, man. And you couldn't afford your house.
These are parents that, I don't know the whole situation because it doesn't go into that many details because, again, it's a kid's movie. But at the same time, obviously, they're having money issues because all their houses are about to be foreclosed on. And your kid's just like, hey, you see this grown adult man? Yeah, he's going to come live with us now.
Yeah. This grown adult man who, by the way, the majority of his life has been locked and chained up in a cave below a restaurant and hid away and isolated from society.
With chains that they had to steal from a zoo to keep him chained up. And then, maybe the parents brought him an extra large Domino's pizza, though. Yeah, so that was
at least
was good.
But I did like the interaction between Data and his dad, or Data and his dad, where you realize that he's just like him, and it was pretty good. And then, of course, you get the cheesy line from him at the end about what was it, that you can't hug a photo or something? Yeah,
and you're my greatest invention, which I don't know if you invented him, you created him. I don't know if you invented him. But
you didn't really play a big part in creating him either.
It was a one-shot deal, and you're done. But again, I like also you had Mikey at the end too, hyperventilating, and he finally said, screw it, and threw the inhaler off, And we also, Richard Donner was in the movie. Whenever they saw the kids coming up the beach, he was one of the guys on the four-wheelers that said, there's those goobers. That was Richard Donner that was actually in his own movie.
Wouldn't it be funny if when Mr. Walsh rips up the papers, like, we have enough money, we don't need to foreclose or anything, like they go to find the jewels are like not really worth that much.
They're cubic zirconia. Which that was a great celebration when other people must have ripped up their deeds too or whatever contract, because whenever he threw the paper up, then you see this behind him blue and white paper go up too at a little bit later time. I was like, oh man, there we go. Other people are joining this celebration.
And then we also get this is where we get like Mouth and Steph, I guess, which is so weird because it's like in the movie, how much older is Steph then? But at the same time, because she looks older than him too. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, in real life, Corey Feldman is actually older than the actors that.
No, he was 14 and she was 17.
Are you sure?
Yep.
Well, she could drive because she's hanging out with kids who can drive. So I assumed that she was 16, something like that.
She's 1 year. I'm sorry. She's 1 year older than him. She was born in 70. He was born in 71.
Math, not our strong suit. Not mine either. That's why I married
obviously it's not mine either, because I read that as he was older than her.
It's late. Okay. I don't know.
Alright.
At least they look similar in age, I guess.
And then we get to see the Inferno just going off on its
Sail
own.
off in the distance by its own.
Which, in maritime law, because Mikey was the one that found it, if somebody ever corrals the Inferno, he has the right to claim all the riches that are still in it. That is maritime law.
Okay, see, I'll be honest with you, I kind of was my thought process, and this is my whole problem with like National Treasure and like all these movies is like, yeah, cool, you found the treasure, but let's be real here, the government's going to take most of this.
Well,
you're not
don't get me started on National Treasure. He has the option to keep more money of it and doesn't take it.
Yeah, well, yeah, that dude was stupid.
He only keeps 0.5% of the treasure. They offered him 10%, and he only keeps half. He only. You know what? This is a different tangent. We're not going to get into that. I'm just saying, if I go through that many life or death experiences and I steal the Declaration of Independence, I'm keeping more than 0.5% of the treasure.
Oh yeah. But even all this kid got out of it was like a bag of marbles that was jewels. Okay.
Well, I think. I mean, if we're being honest, there's no way I'm just watching it sail off into the distance. I'm like, we're going to get a boat.
Yes.
I don't feel like anybody did.
Go save it, get the money.
Yeah.
All right. So
they literally live in a place that's called Goon Dock. Like, you tell me somebody ain't got a boat around here.
That's a good point.
Man, you save that, you can then also make money. People just coming to just walk on it, just go through it.
Yeah.
Come on now.
All right, so that brings us to the end of the movie. Guys, anything you would like to add before we move on to the rankings?
No, I mean, you can see Steven Spielberg's fingerprints in this, you know, with just kind of Adventure Time. And again, like I said, Donner, Columbus, and Spielberg put together, you can see all three of their hands in this movie. All
right. Well, I guess it's time to go on to our rankings. Ernie, it's your movie. Why don't we let you go first?
All right. Well, again, this is to me. Whoa. Sorry. To me, this is like one of the best like kid adventure movies because again, I think it's a generational type of movie that can be watched in multiple generations, not just in the 80s. And I think it translates throughout. I think through multiple years, and I think people over and over again, despite some of the cheesiness and despite what some of the things that are going through it, you know, I think it's a family love film. Now, don't tell my wife because she can't stand it, but you know that's her fault, not mine. But again, I love this movie. This is a movie that I can quote. This is a movie that I will watch over and over and over again. And I don't usually, I think, rate movies very often, but I may be overrating this, and I'm all right with that. So I'm going to give the Goonies 8.75.
Go ahead, Sokes.
Yeah, you know what? I was doing it anyways, not just because you told me to.
I'm being courteous.
I run this show.
Have at it, buddy. Have at it.
I mean, you know, I grew up watching older movies, so I know I saw this when I was younger, but I don't remember. I remembered it as I was watching it, but I don't remember the first time I saw it. That being said, the nostalgia of it was just, it hit so hard. I mean, just when you see the quotes of, you know, hey, you guys, and, you know, Sloth Love Chunk and Goonies Never Die. I mean, it just fills you up with so much, I don't know, adventure. I mean, it really brings you back to your childhood. Like Ernie said, and I think even though that I'm much younger than Ernie, it still hits me just as much as it hits him. So I think that just goes to prove his generation's point. I don't really know if 8.75 is overrating it because I was going to give it an 8.5, and I think that's what I'll give it. Because as Ernie said, I do think it is the best kid adventure movie, and I don't think the other one. Maybe Stand By Me, I guess, would be the second best. But I don't think it's as good as this one. So
it's different, that's for sure.
Yeah. like I mentioned earlier, Kamei has tried to get me to watch this movie a lot over the years, and I don't really know why I haven't ever really sat down and watched it. Of course,
Terrible husband.
Well, of course, I do know the famous quote, "The Hey, you guys," and do quote that often, even though I had never seen the movie. But man, I mean, I enjoyed it. This is one of those, and I think I say this about a lot of movies. It's one of those that you can just kind of, if it's on TV and you're sitting there, you'd probably sit down and watch it. I really did find myself laughing a lot at this, especially the name calling at one another and picking at each other and everything. Like I generally found myself just kind of enjoying, and it's one of those movies that you don't really have to think about. You don't have to. It's not very deep. It's not some elaborate story. It's just, hey, there's a pirate shipwrecked around here somewhere that has a bunch of rich stuff on it. Let's go try to find it to save our home. And as far as the acting about all the kids, even to be as young as all the kids are, I don't really think that there was anybody that I just didn't really like.
Yeah.
I think all of the kids did a great job in the roles that they were given. Even with like Chunk being, I think I said 11 years old, and even some of them all being 18. Even with that broad range, I think you still had a group of kids that worked well together, that performed very well. I think the bad guys, but in general, did a really good job about being bad guys, but not being like over the top or too scary or anything, and like keeping it like a good kids movie. And I just all around I enjoyed it. I don't think I'm going to rate it as high as y'all did. I think I'm going to give it a flat 8. And but like I said, I did enjoy the movie a lot.
Somebody's sleeping on the couch tonight.
She won't know about this till tomorrow.
Somebody's sleeping on the couch tomorrow night.
But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the movie a lot.
All right, so that's a 8.75 from Ernie, an 8.5 from me, and an 8 from Dakota. That averages out to 8.42. Ernie, where does that put us on our rankings?
That ties at 16, 4 Weddings and a Funeral. It puts it below Screaming Raiders of the Lost Ark and above First Blood and Batman.
All right, there you have it. And if you'd like to see that full rankings list, you can go to our website. That's podpage.com/classic blockbusters. It's podpage.com/classic blockbusters. We have our full rankings list on there, as well as our episodes, a little bit about us, and some other stuff that Ernie does, and we appreciate him doing that. You can find us on Facebook, Blockbusters, a classic movie podcast, and also on Twitter at BlockbusterPod1, or X, I guess this is now called. We are streaming every week on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and when we remember to put it on there, we're also on YouTube.
We're caught up.
Are we? That's got to be a first. All right, so next movie, it is my pick, right?
Yes, it is.
Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be funny if I would pick a movie and it wasn't my pick?
Oh, let me tell you.
It'd be par for course is what it would be.
If it was my pick, I was about to panic because I would have not known it was my pick.
Well, speaking of that, it's funny you should mention that because Dakota had very much influence on my pick this week. Because as I told you guys last week, I had 4 movies in mind. And then this past Monday, we were having a lovely dinner with Dakota and Kamei when they decided that they were going to trash Tom Cruise. With Dakota saying that Tom Cruise can only play the Mission Impossible action role. It's the only role he's capable of playing. Those are the words that came out of his mouth. And as you guys know, I do not stand for Tom Cruise slander. So,
no, he plays Top Gun Tom Cruise too. Don't forget about that in every other movie.
Yeah.
So this week we will be doing the 1990. Actually, what year is it? Hold on.
I don't know.
I forgot what year it was. Where's the year on this movie? 1996. Sports drama comedy, Jerry Maguire.
Jerry Maguire?
That will be what... I had a lot of different ways I was going to go with it, but I haven't seen Jerry Maguire in a while, so I wanted to watch that one. And it's free, Ernie.
Hey, there we go. Now you're speaking my language.
So I thought you would appreciate that.
Heck yeah.
But I also considered What's the Vietnam movie?
Born on the 4th of July.
Born on the 4th of July. Also considered that one. And The Firm as well, which is but we've already done one Tom Cruise lawyer movie, so I didn't see any reason to do another one. So next week we will do Jerry Maguire, and you can all thank Dakota and Kamei for another Tom Cruise movie.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about the 80s and 90s, I mean, we're going to be doing a lot of Tom Cruise movies anyways.
Well, you say it like it's a bad thing.
No, I don't. I like Tom Cruise.
All right, so that's what we'll be doing next week. 8.42. That is what we gave Goonies for this week. Guys, anything to add before we wrap this up?
Nope. Nino Brown on the Inferno.
You already did Nino Brown.
I don't want to hear you besmirch Nino Brown's name at all.
I'm not besmirching it, but you
You are
already did it. It
besmirching.
loses the whole point if you're just going to do it multiple times in a podcast.
Oh, no. The more, the merrier.
Okay, well, as Ernie will say, we will see you at the movies.